Hey everyone, welcome back. This is Lucid, and we are back with the tournament finals. It's turn 46, and yeah, let's get into it. A quick summary of what's been happening. We have Ys just poking and prodding Vanheim to death, doing rather low commitment attacks, but otherwise not being terribly aggressive, not going after Bandarlog, just poking and prodding Vanheim to death. And yeah, meanwhile, Vanheim, while he had been winning pretty decisively the war against End, outrating him, won the first major fight, had a very, I don't know if this is a word, a Pyrrhic defeat. End had a Pyrrhic victory, but Vanheim had a Pyrrhic defeat. And yeah, if you know what the word for that is, I'm sure there's the opposite of Pyrrhic victory if you're on the other side of that. A close defeat, maybe, in trying to take End's capital. He actually won the major battle outside the fort, but then lost to his god. Yeah. Now, we're going to go ahead and take a look at this turn. We start with a magic phase attack by Vanheim with his god. And this is on top of the jelly cube stack here. So they're buffing up this guy, it looks like. Some Earth Power. Marble Warriors? That was a pretty bad Marble Warriors casting. And they're doing Gifts of Heaven, so it seems... I think that was scripted, so it seems that Ys was at least anticipating this might happen. Interesting. Now, Temper Flesh actually very good against Gifts of Heaven, because Gifts of Heaven is blunt type damage, and if you're a Titan chassis, it may not one hit kill you, especially if you have good protection and blunt resistance. I think it's 150, it may be 125 blunt damage. So it will go through, basically, I think it's 150. So it'll go to like 120 after protection, and then that will get cut in half by this blunt resistance, and that will take it to about 60 damage, which is a lot, but it's something that Earnest can handle in Friendly Dominion anyway. And with only one guy casting Gifts of Heaven from that far away, it's pretty unlikely they even hit. He's got this guy who's run forward and is now casting Earth Grip, which is a pretty good spell to cast, but it's not going to matter. Earnest smacks him in the face for 66 damage. And that's that. So he's cleared this squad out. So the Titan actually doing a pretty good amount of work. I was really worried whether Vanheim would be able to get Earnest back in action after he got so afflicted by that one fateful battle with Bandarlog. But yeah, no, cleared out a good bit of PD, killed a druid, routed another two, so they may or may not live. And with that, let's go kind of from the strategic map here. Take a look at the other stuff happening. Ys attacks on top of this fort with a few more Varks, and there's just... I think that's just the PD, right? Yeah. But fortunately for Vanheim, his god attacked a province with a lab in it. So, also a pretty high value province. Very high value province. Farmland with 3 very good magic sites. So anyway, he's hopefully going to be able to, keep holding down the fort for a little longer. His Ice Devil deployed over here. And again, it's against a gelatinous cube. The gelatinous cubes slowly, ever so slowly, making their way forward. Gelatinous cubes aren't very fast. And you can see they don't really do much to it. This guy. He's also big enough he doesn't have to worry about trample. Which is the main thing to worry about with gelatinous cubes. Over here, Vanarus scout detected. Okay, over here, oh my gosh, look at this. There's a major Ys army here. This looks like a setup to me, which is designed to potentially kill Earnest if Earnest comes in. He's got the sill. I think that's what he's kind of preparing for over here. Does he have a fort under construction? No. He may be thinking about making a play on Vanarus's cap. But I think he's just trying to kind of bait. I think he's waiting for Vanarus to kind of fuck up. To get like Vanarus's god killed, and then he'll feel more comfortable moving in. That's kind of my guess. He seems to be kind of waiting for something. Right now he's just poking and prodding Vanarus to death. And I don't, to be honest, quite know what he's waiting for. The Ysian siege chaff. Okay, we've got an important battle here. I'm trying to locate the Ysian siege chaff. I know a lot of it was killed by Earnest, I believe, last episode. You know, I suppose if, you know, like Vanarus was saying, other players are worried about him for whatever reason, which to me doesn't make a ton of sense since he has now like 6 provinces, but there people probably like the story that Vanarus is holding out, you know, like he's inflicting some damage, he's not completely dying. Holding out is maybe a bit generous, but he is not crumbling, right? He's holding out way better than Pythium did, way better than Satis did, way better than Atlantis did. You know, he's inflicting damage. He's not losing infrastructure. He's trying to raid back. Anyway. So people may think, like, okay, that's good. You know, Vanarus, who we're worried about, is very slowly and painfully losing to Ys. And they've got Sea of Ice up. It could be that the Sea of Ice is really is, you know, made Ys not very confident, pressing his gains on land. Because if he loses, I guess one way to look at it is if he loses a lot of this siege chaff and other stuff, like if he loses these Morvarks, you know, he potentially could just die. Or, like, not die, but lose a lot of his land holdings, because he can't really reinforce from the ocean. But, and I think this was in Vanarus's message, if everybody took this opportunity with Sea of Ice down to go and take a bunch of the Ys stuff on land, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think it makes a ton of sense. But we've talked ad nauseum about why that isn't happening. One YOLO move is he could send his god in versus this. I don't know if there is a kit that would allow him to survive this with a fluffer. I mean, enough Gifts of Heaven is going to prevent that from happening, probably. Early Mind Burn's coming out. This would probably kill fluffers that come in with him, so they'd have to have some MR gear on the fluffer. A Watcher here too. Going to do a bit of lightning damage. His god. This is the Ysian god. Blood 4, Nature 6, Death 3, Astro 3, Earth 4. Earth 5. Water 5. We can't really see what they were going to cast. We can try to speculate. Air Gems here, I'm guessing this was maybe Fog Warriors or Mass Flight. I don't think, but I don't know if he has... Oh, okay. He's got this guy with Magic Pin Gear. Yeah, I think to go in here against the natural community, there's just a lot of different threat vectors. This would be... I don't want to say it's impossible, because I'm not sure I think it is. but it's damn near impossible. This is extremely hard for something to try to super combatant. It's not a huge astral communion, so with enough MR gear, you probably could have a pretty good chance of surviving, 60 something turns. You probably want to couple it with some kind of battlefield wipe that you do, which is going to make it it's going to put more burden on like your fluffer to survive, to help get all the buffs you're going to need on you to stay alive. But that would be an epic play. I'm sure he thought about it. I don't know. He might have just immediately. I mean, this is decidedly a trap for Earnest. He also has a shit ton of mages. He potentially could just bring all the mages with whatever gems he has, bring them all over here, summon a huge amount of shit. I'm not even sure what it would be, just a ton of elementals, and bring Earnest. And he probably has a pretty good chance of killing all that. But I don't know. Could be worth, the mage turn. The problem then is you're open then to magic phase attacks the following turn, which I think is okay with a shit ton of mages. It's not the kind of thing you want a magic phase attack into generally. Take it, do a PD dump in case he does call the winds and is hoping to snipe a bunch of your mages, and then, have them move out, and it could work. But whether you could take it in the first place, you really, why I mention it is if you're Vanarus, you really want to look for ways to take trades like this, like where if there were a way to kill most of this shit, you desperately, desperately want to do it. And you don't have a ton of other options. Like, you don't have big armies to move in to take it. You really, dying to use Earnest for this. I don't know. We can probably tell from looking at the god how much Dominion is here and whose it is. Okay, Earnest can't really come here. It's friendly. It's at least friendly 2, maybe friendly 3 Dominion for Ys. That's going to make this province very difficult for him to bring his god, because he's also, instead of getting a magic resistance bonus, he's going to get a magic resistance penalty, which is going to mean this astral communion is going to really hurt. He's got paralyze firing off turn 1, so he might not even get a script off. He would just need a ton of MR gear. And then he would also need to be able to survive these enlarged Morvark Knights and Sylphs. Like, this is no joke. And then I'm sure that one of these guys, like a anti-super combatant thug too, like up here. Yeah, great sword of sharpness. Yeah, okay. This is impossible. This is completely a god-killing trap. I was just looking at this part, like when you factor in the anti-super combatant thugs, I think it's basically mission impossible. You might be able to do it with all your mages, though. Anyway. Okay. Let's see what else happens over here. We've covered, I think, a lot of it. Yeah, that's about all the action. That is about all the action. We don't see too much more from Ys coming from the land regions up here, funneling downwards, but we'll see. This fort has no Ysian troops on top of it. So anyway, this seems to be kind of like at a slow simmer. Let's come to the Vanheim Ys conflict. So Ulm is oh my gosh. Ulm presses out, manages to catch some Vans. And he's got a bunch of these Battle Axe dudes. Summon Earth Power, Legions of Steel, Blade Wind. That's funny he's not doing Strength of Giants. I guess it doesn't matter that much. If these guys get hit, they probably are going to die. Yeah. It's like the Ulmish troops can't hit them, but they can't get through the armor. It's like defense first protection. And in this case, protection 1. Okay. Over here, same deal. These are the kind of things that Ulm needed earlier. He might just not have had the resources for it. But these are like little efficient squads of dudes who are going to be able to kill a lot of the raiding threats. So anyway, it's, I think he felt, and, he didn't have the resources to both go on the offensive and have anti-raiding resources. But I mean, I guess it's nice having Jotunheim's capital and then now this fort, but he doesn't seemingly have much to defend it. Okay, yeah. An exodus of mages. And then he takes this fort. So now what do you do if you're Ulm? You've taken this. Do you keep going after these other forts? I think you kind of want to, but you also kind of need to come back up here and liberate this. He's got a secondary army, and this army is going to probably be strong enough to deal with any thugs, and then maybe might be strong enough to liberate this. Probably not. But yeah, Doomstack, these are like the problems of Doomstacking. It's like he's moving through like a blob of jello, right? So like wherever he goes, the jello yields, but it just kind of fills in right behind him wherever he leaves. And the solution to that is to have all the to have these little squads that can kill all the things that are coming in from behind the jello. He had this group out, but, it's not doing a very good job catching these thugs. So, anyway, this land is now firmly his, and will probably remain his for a while, as he comes back up to take... now he's got to get the Jotun raiding under control. But this is just, like, the most painful, mutually destructive war. They have ruined each other. Vanheim continuing to raid down here with End. Okay, this is an interesting bump. So Vanheim runs into a bunch of God Grievers. So the question is, how are 6 elves going to do a bunch against... I can't talk. How are 6 elves going to do against a bunch of angry doggos? The problem is the elves aren't very killy, so they're going to poke the doggos and make the doggos very mad. And when the doggos get mad, they've got 3 reasonably high attacks. Which means the defense of the elves is not going to matter a tremendous amount. These doggos really do need a kind of protection buff. I mean, God, they would love bark skin or something. But I mean, you can see once they start getting surrounded and harassed, and these doggos get berserk on them, they start just murdering them. So anyway, that's that. And this happens, honestly, a lot with elves. More so than other nations. Like, End is not cap restricted, but the elves, like, once you take, and I guess for Vanheim they have, I don't think the Einherjar are cap only, but they are expensive. Yeah, they're not cap only, they recruit anywhere, but they're kind of expensive. They're really good though. But like the Vans are cap only, so yeah, I mean, when you start losing a lot of Vans, it's like things go from bad to worse pretty quickly as the elves. I'm sure he's got, because he's been super rich from all this raiding he's been doing. So he's probably got a lot of reinforcements coming through. Like here's a scout that got detected. Yeah, by a ton. Look at all these Einherjars. So I don't think an invasion of Vanheim proper will work out for End. But I mean, he's had so much of the wind sucked out of his sails. And I mean, I think if you're over here, like, you can keep doing deep raiding, but like he's not able to trace income from this. I think honestly you just pull them back. Maybe you start raiding a little bit more on the border. Deep raiding when you're not tracing income, in my opinion, generally a pretty bad idea. And when you do it, if you do it, you want to do it in sufficient quantities that it's like debilitating. And 1 or 2 guys or 3 guys is probably not, anyway, he's well below that point. He needs to get these guys the hell out. Maybe raid on his way going home. A message has arrived from home. Sorry, I didn't see this at the beginning of the turn. Sorry for lack of updates in recent turns. I think ultimate victory over Jotun is certain, but I'm also so small due to Vanheim raids. I don't have enough assets to deliver blows necessary. The killing blows necessary. My army is still untouchable, and I'll continue to capture forts one at a time. I don't think he has enough chaff to take back anything. He might be able to field similar armies to what he used during our big battle if he pulled all his scattered Skratti and Gaiju together. But given how poorly that went for him, I understand his preference for raiding instead. However, my small squads have proven quite effective versus single Skratti. So now that's getting dangerous for him too. I noticed this turn he consolidated his raiders together. So I'll need to be more careful with my counter raiding team. I'm heading for his coastal throne because there is danger of Arco outright winning the game, and I don't want to give him that throne for free. Vanheim Ys thinks he can't win versus Ys in the long term, but so far he has failed at diploing Ind or Vanheim. Vanheim Ys thinks he can't win versus Ys in the long term, but so far he has failed at diploing Ind or Vanheim to stop their war and attack Ys instead. Fortunately, I'm in the position to politely decline any involvement since I no longer border Ys on land. As a matter of fact, Ys has been a major trading partner for me, and I've sold him a lot of Skratti gear. I have a ton. Oh my god. Sure, everybody is just super thankful for that. I've been selling gems. Crafting things, selling gems. All around about 20 gold per gem. On one hand, I regret helping the game leader, but in truth, I'm also draining his gold, and the only realistic way I can fund continued recruitment. Sort of fair. Yeah, I don't know. That's interesting. I'm sitting here thinking about it. I think it honestly, like, I think this is where you need, like, there is some skill in diplomacy, and the skill in diplomacy is, like, snapping people out of whatever their perspective is and giving them, like, a good perspective. Like, like, people come into each turn with a ton of baggage, and the baggage is all the things that have happened in the previous turns. And sometimes with that, you can lose sight of the game state. Now, some players, like if you're in a 2v1, like Ulm may feel like he doesn't have any obligation to help anybody else other than himself. Because right now he's in survival mode. And for a while that made sense, but I don't think that necessarily applied. I mean, it applied for a while, but like he's taken Jotun's cap. He's not as impotent now. Like he could have made different decisions. He's not, I think he feels more impotent than he is. Anyway. But anyway, getting people to like believe that there's something we can do if we work together or we do something smart, then like if you can do that, then you can kind of start fixing the diplomatic issues, right? But it's not easy, right? And it requires kind of the trust of like getting the trust of players, hearing everybody's grievances, all these sorts of things. And then once people are heard out and they have their grievances heard and they can really understand like what they're all doing, there's diplomatic skill in getting that to happen is what I'm trying to say. But that is not, it does not appear anywhere close to happening right now. Message from Vanheim Ys. Sadly, any element of surprise from the Frost Devils is now gone. And I didn't even get to kill the Sylph Mercs, which I definitely do not want to see flapping around near me. I'm a bit puzzled as to why Ys is stopping to knock down my dominion in the south, considering I can blood sacrifice, just pretty much indefinitely. I'm pulling about 40 to 60 blood gems, blood slaves, please, per turn from blood hunting, even without any surviving patrol squads of my national air dogs. And Ys is going to hold pretty much everything under permanent siege if he wants me to stop. He's going to have to hold everything under permanent siege if he wants to stop that regular blood income. Ulm appears to be winning the conflict that Jotunheim started, but slowly. If Ys sits and spins his wheels in my lawn for 20 turns or so, Ulm could be a contender. That pleases me because Ulm is the only player who was relevant at the time of the fall of Pythium, who did not make the conscious decision to throw me under the bus in favor of an overambitious war. Um, Sort of true. Sort of true. I think attacking Jotunheim in some ways, like going on the offensive into Jotunheim, like he's not attacking. I don't know. I talked about it a little bit before, but if Ulm had instead turned on Vanheim, it's likely, or yeah, if he had turned on Vanheim, then Vanheim probably would have tried harder to peace out with Ind. Or, ideally Ulm would have worked on Ind to go to war with Ys, I think, and said, I'll take Vanheim. But instead, Ulm was asking Ind to help him with Vanheim, which makes sense. But anyway, I don't know. It's easy to Monday morning quarterback some of that. Continuing, I'm not sure what's going on in the Vanheim-Ind war, but Ind was making noises about winning his capital defense just now, so I'm guessing that both sides are losing. That's a pretty good assessment. Ind is such an annoying nation to keep scouted. My gold income has fallen below upkeep for 2 turns running, so I suffered my first desertion this turn. Singular, one Chud Herdman is deserted. Commanders never desert due to not getting paid, and Sacreds don't desert either, nor do most summons. Magnitude of failure to pay doesn't matter either. Desertion is a toothless threat. That's funny. Okay, so we've covered this conflict now, I think. We've covered the End Vanarus conflict, and we've covered the Elf conflict, so I think we're going to go to the next turn. Turn 47. Coming up. A message from Ulm. I don't think Jotun has a decent enough pile of siege chaff to take back his cap in any reasonable amount of time. I think he's prioritizing recruiting mages, Skratti, and his forts, which are not cheap. I have time to get my main objective, his coastal throne, which will also help with Dominion, though I might not claim it right away. At least it will reduce his Dominion spread. It actually might be ideal if he does try to take his cap, and I try to defend it 1 or 2 turns late, because he would end up doing the hard work for me, gathering all his troops and forces into one place so I can kill them. In the meantime, I'm happy taking 1 fort at a time. I can keep up the counter raiding at home for now, but as the economy war tips back in my favor, I should be able to corner the last of his geared thugs after the next fort capture. As long as I don't have any threat of turbo communions, I'll try to split up my offensive army to grab as much land as possible to force his raiders home. Research is finally picking up again, now that I have had a few turns to make lightless lanterns. All those mages fighting have been pretty bad for my research rate. We're aiming for enchantment 6 so I can air offend myself, then maybe alt 8 for earth-based lightning resistance. I anticipate fighting Van for real. If I anticipate fighting Van for real. Or if I still have... or if I'm still fighting Jotun and don't need that, maybe Conjuration to start getting more diverse mages. Okay, we'll come to Vanarus's thing. Let's look at Ulm first. Okay, so Ulm has moved on the coastal throne to secure this from Ys, presumably, as he says. I think the one he has to worry about now, the one that Ys is almost adjacent to, is this one. I mean, he is not very far away from that. But I guess the knights are guarding it for now. Ulm with the PvE experience, having the Indies attack here. And he's got these counter-raiding threats set up. Okay, I think I just ran. Okay, he's been getting raided by these Skratti for so long. He's done a horrible... I mean, not in the bad... Like, he... Either it's bad luck in predicting where these guys are going. He also doesn't have a lot of counter-raiding squads. He's done a horrible job catching these Skratti. They have been causing so much trouble, and they just haven't been getting caught. Like, almost at all. Almost at all. But, he's not tracing income from this stuff, right? So... He has all these provinces. He's denying it from Ulm. He's messing with Ulm's economy, which, it makes sense because Ulm does have his capital. But it's just, oh my god. I mean, this is the most spiteful, wasteful war. Okay. Anyway, that's that conflict. Let's go to Vanarus. Well, that's quite the army sitting on my lawn, I guess. So he's talking. This is the army that was set up to kill Earnest. I love to march in there and kill Ys's pretender, but it's got counter thugs, soul slay coverage, mass buffs to go around. I don't think that's a thing that's going to happen. It will probably hover around -1 to -3 Dominion. My Dominion push is strong enough to keep it from building up, but every turn all those druids are probably pushing it positive again, up to his cap for H1 preaching. I have no idea why Ys sent a rainbow pretender there. The amount of Morvarks does suggest that she gatewayed through another shipment above the waves. She's geared as a melee thug with no gems. I feel like she should be doing laboratory things, safe in some underwater fort, possibly hiding. No, I think he's right. I think she's gatewaying in troops. But no, she has gems. I think she's a caster. I mean, she's pretty high air. Wait, she was geared as a melee. She was not geared as. She had some basic thug gear. When I saw her, she had a bunch of air gems, though. I feel like she should be doing laboratory things, possibly hiding in Exitus or Ex-Pythium territory, summoning mages or chaff. At least 3 Frost Devils. I have at least 3 Frost Devils and a Keeper of the Bridge that I could field, but I'd need to re-gear them, and I'm not too confident of their chances for success. If I pull the trigger, I probably could kill a good chunk of the armies, but then I'm out of things to defend with. Well, 2 Frost Devils for sure. The one that went east of my capital might die this turn. The turn this message arrives. And Ys, as Ys took the time to burn down a laboratory there, I had been planning to swap on Shade Mail to keep him for sure. But now there's at least one princess in range that can potentially get him. She's geared with a Hammer of the Mountains. But of course that could change. So okay, let's go to Vanarus and see what happened. Okay. So loses. This is the problem with using fluffers, is that they tend to die. This looks like Frozen Heart. Oh, you got pretty lucky here. When he went off script, he started banishing the undead rather than casting Frozen Heart. If he cast Frozen Heart one more time, he would have killed him. Yeah. Water 1 mages, man. I'm telling you. Okay, so manages to take this back, but at some cost, and this guy may have gotten afflicted. I didn't even check. Gets rid of a swan. Morvark comes in here. You can see these are just ultra low commitment raids. Just poke, 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 poke. Slowly bleeding Vanarus out. I don't know where Earnest went. So there are a few Zots on top of here. I think they sniped the... Oh no. I guess they just kill the corpse constructs. These guys do have charged body, so they tend to paralyze people that hit them, but I guess... I kind of thought this would go the way of the corpse constructs. I guess it went the way of the Zots. So anyway, this fort's back under siege. Yeah, anyway, Vanarus, every loss Vanarus takes, he can't replace. So that's the other kind of shitty thing for him. You know, completely upkeep constrained. Yeah, I think that's about it to cover down here. Just slowly getting bled out. You know, struggling to keep forts under siege. Forts out from under siege. But we don't see any particularly decisive blow coming in. Ys seems to mostly be chilling. And now we'll go to the Vanheim end conflict. More deep raiding. Loses some more Vans, which are hard to replace, but kills some Gogs, We'll watch this. It's kind of what you saw in the last battle. It's like the first Gogs die pretty quickly. But the last ones end up kind of doing some damage. Yeah. There we go. Lost 3 Vans. But, like, again, can't trace income from any of this. I think this was an indie attack here. Yeah, 3 more Vans killed that had retreated that don't have a commander. And, yeah, End starting to look more like End. Vanheim pretty much shut down. End not having a lot of troops on this whole border. I don't know if his economy's been shut down or what, but, you know, like, ideally these forts should be producing units that would counter-raid this. But maybe he's out of money, because there don't seem to be a lot of units down here. Bandar Log has interestingly struck out here with 50 dudes, and they have driven the knights off of their former throne. And again, all these sacreds are not blessed, which, you know, is a problem for Bandar Log, but if this is big army with a bunch of sacreds, he should probably have his prophet in it. His elephants run. So, yeah. The fort is popped. I guess he can take it. You know, Ys could also come and probably knock him off with a thug. The elephants have run. So I'm guessing there's an elephant. Oh, no. I think the elephants all died in retreat. So, yeah, I feel like a thug could probably come kill this. And if that happens, it would be pretty wide open for Ys to take. Ys has a lot of Kurnow druids down here. It shows a ton, but again, we got that patch with the replay bug. So, or the sprite icon bug. So anyway, Vanarus striking out to, I mean, not Vanarus, Bandar Log striking out to reclaim some of their stuff, but they are beyond mortally wounded. But, you know, anyway, good for them for coming out and putting pressure on what they can, taking back from Vanarus what Vanarus took from them. I think if we look at it, like, who are even contenders in the game right now? It's hard to really say. Like, the past 6 turns, the difference between position 1 and position 2 has gotten so big. Like, because everybody, like, Bandar Log has been completely crippled, and is just, like, anything he does right now is mostly against some player who is, like, he's not even attacking this Ys province. It's just weakening, like, Vanarus or something, you know, like some other player aside from position 1, and they're just weakening each other. You know, like, he's losing stuff in this attack. This war, complete mutual destruction. It's possible, and I think Ohm's assessment is right. In the long term, I think it will shift to him, because it's going to take a while for him to get for Jotunheim to take back his cap, etc. But I mean, it's just been completely economically devastating for Ulm. Yeah. This war, complete mutual destruction. Like, I wonder if we have army graphs. Oh shit, I don't really have them. We'll be able to tell when the game's over. We can look at army graphs, but what I expect we'll talk about when we get there is we're going to look at, like, this point in the game, and we'll see, like, this is Ys, right? High on the army graphs, which is a good proxy for, like, military power. And everybody else is probably, like, this is before Vanheim's big loss, so they're probably all, like, down here, you know, like, have just been crashing. This was End's big loss. Vanheim's big loss is probably right here, so they're probably, like, down here or something. They're, like, as weak as they've ever been, while number one's as strong as they've ever been, and then on provinces about as big as they've ever been, right? So it's just going to be a huge gap, I think. And I think it's gotten worse lately rather than better. So I think the questions that we have to ask are: is End going to go on a major offensive to, like, to eradicate Vanheim? That's a question. I think this war with Jotunheim and Ulm is not going to resolve in the next 10 turns, I think. Um, in 10 turns from now, it may be Jotunheim is on his last legs. But that could honestly all go bad if he comes up with one thing or like one group that can counter this Ulm army. And if that happens, it's back to just a complete disaster for both of them. But 10 turns is a long time. And it's going to all the gains Ulm gets is going to come at a major cost, either in terms of rating or lost counter rating squads, presumably. We'll see. So anyway, I think that's it. Let's go ahead and go to turn 48, and this will probably be the last turn for this episode. Turn 48. Magic phase attack. Oh. It looks like, so Vanheim was getting mind hunted. So that means End has mind hunt online, because it's one of the interactions that my nation can have with the game. Is there's a chance I can be targeted instead of them from mind hunt. Okay, I think this was a fort. Oh no, this was just this province. He pinged this with a scout. Yes, very regularly is pinging province. If you get pinged by Yes, there's a very good chance there's a magic phase attack coming in that turn. Oh, End with the Hashmel. Okay, look, using little thugs now. We haven't seen these before. I guess we'll start off with the End conflict. Just with the Frostburn. These guys are kind of cool. They have awe and they're ethereal, but they don't have armor slots. So it's a bit tricky, but they have invulnerability. But versus magic weapons, they don't do very hot. But versus PD, they're actually... and they're pretty cheap. So they're very efficient PD raiding machines. Here they snipe the commander too. They're also flying, so... lots of good... I like these guys a lot. Okay, let's go to End. They're not heavy thugs or anything like that, but and if they fight, anything of significant resistance, it's not very good, but yeah, like here they run into a more proper army. Now, Einherrs do not have magic weapons, so Einherrs are not a great... oh gosh. Let's watch that again. He just lands in the back line. There's not... all he does is bless, maybe Holy Avenger, and then jump in. So there's not a long time to buff up. These guys do have magic weapons, because it's part of their bless. So they are going to absolutely wreck him. But they don't have fire resistance. And... Hashmels have fire shield, and the hoof attacks kind of ruin them. So even though they murder basically the Hashmel, they took a fair amount of damage, and this I think was mostly from the fire shield. So mutual destruction. This was actually kind of an even trade, I think, in terms of resources, because this guy just I think had a frost brand. And they're not very expensive. I can't remember how much they cost. I feel like they're around like 12 gems, but I don't think they're like 20. I think they're pretty cheap. So I think in total it's like a 20 gem investment. Probably a pretty okay trade actually for Vanheim, but not great. More like in the similar resources lost category. Hashmel coming in over here. Vanheim appears to have snuck this army out rather than retaking things. So I'm guessing his vans are on top of this. This army is not going to be able to kill this, I do not think. So I'm not actually sure... I'm not actually sure where this group is going. I feel like this is completely ill-equipped to fight off End. Like, Einherrs versus Doggos, I don't think is a trade you want to make, especially when you're outnumbered, and they're potentially going to have mage support. So we'll have to see what Vanheim does, but I think, too, if you're on the back foot, you set up traps for Hashmel, and you try to get End to peace out with you and let him keep this, which I think should have been what's been should have happened all along. Like, this is just wasting resources, right? But you do want to have enough of an army to show in they're not going to be able to attack and kill you, which I think is true. I don't think End has enough stuff over here to attack and kill him. So anyway, there's that. Vanheim's still pretty big. Even when he loses a lot of this End territory, it's not that bad. Honestly, it's pretty weird these lakes have not been conquered yet. You would think, like, Vanheim could just do, like, you know, trade somebody for Shambler skin armor and send a few Van Herses underwater. Or, you know, like a Van Jarl with the Vine Shield. Start tracing income from these. I mean, they're okay provinces. It's like 100 gold per turn left on the table. Okay, so anyway, that's that. Let's come over here and take a look at the Ulm conflict with the Skratti. So fails to catch that Skratti. Does not catch anything here, but just counter raids. Does not catch anything here, but counter raids. Here, the 3 of these guys go on top of a fort, and they get wrecked. So yeah, still not catching any doggies. And getting, you know, again, like a blob of jello. Oh, this is funny, though. So, Jotunheim's force, trying to siege his own cap, gets attacked by Indies. And they do pretty good against these Veti. Actually causes some to rout. So this puts a real damper on his ability to siege. I mean, has 40 of his Veti rout. This is probably most of the siege strength of the army. These guys have actually not terribly great siege strength. So, yeah. That's kind of comical. I can't, I'm going to stop repeating myself, but mutual destruction, my friends. Pure spite and venom. Okay. So he's going to be taking this. Yeah, this honestly is not very scary. He could probably send a small contingent of this army to come wipe this stack out at the same time as he takes this. He's probably worried, though, that if he depletes this main army much at all, he may not be able to keep doom stacking around with it. But it would probably be worth it to keep this fort from being under siege. And the things that he's using to counter raid are pretty weak in general. Like, it's just a lot of Veti. He's not even using, like, Skratti mixed in with it. So I don't know. I feel like you don't need much. Like, a bit of PD, a bit of reinforcements. But static defenses are dangerous, right? Because at the same time, you know, anytime you do a static defense, they'll just one-up you. But anyway, this is the world we are living in. So that's this turn for the Ulm Vanheim. I mean, for the Ulm Utgard or Jotunheim conflict. And did we cover? I don't know if we covered all of the Ys stuff. Did we? Okay, Atavi archers. These are mercs. They died, but they routed the Vanabog. I think this is Frozen Heart. Okay. I don't even think he got hurt. I think he just HP routed. Yeah. Probably good. He would have died there. Yeah. I mean, there's honestly some pretty decent... Well, what are the decent things that they give you cold resistance? I mean, Frostbrands are one, just like basic thug kit. That's not going to protect you enough, though, just having 5 cold resistance. Maybe like... I'm trying to think of the 5... I mean, you can do it just a Ring of Frost, right? That's pretty basic. I think at this point, Ys has made it pretty clear that there's going to be a druid in almost every province. So if you're going to try to take it back with a thug, you're going to need at least 10 cold resistance. So I think at this time, like, Ring of Frost, you basically are going to have. Here he kills all this stuff, but like this is super low commitment stuff. This stuff doesn't matter to you. Ys gives two shits about this, right? This does not matter at all. Okay, he takes this back, takes this back. Ys attacks Vanarus here with just a bit of garbage and a few Morvark Knights. He's got two commanders, so that it's less likely that, you know, the commanders get killed and then the army routes. But yeah, this guy's routed, so that's basically that. Didn't kill any of the Morvark Knights, but the Morvark Knights without any commanders, there's a pretty good chance they died in retreat. Ys sends a Morgan Princess over here. She's got an Evening Star, which is going to... I think she stole this actually from Vanarus, but I could be wrong. Copper Plate, Vine Shield, Barkskin Amulet, Flask of Holy Water. Kind of odd. And you're only running... It didn't have a very long script. Flask of Holy Water you normally do to save a turn in the script if you're already a Holy Mage, because it makes you start off blessed. Could be he was... I'm not sure. Maybe that turn would have mattered a lot if he was like going to run into Earnest or something. It's possible. Okay, a few Morvark Knights and a bunch of garbage move on top of this fort. So Horde of Skeletons, and then the Zots jump in, try to hit a commander. Well, they hit it about the same time the Knights hit, I think. We watch that again. So they take off. No, they land like a turn early. Either way, things get pretty wrecked here. The Great Hawk dies, and he loses a fair amount of the Zots. But anyway, takes the province. And yeah, just keeping up all this pressure with the little tiny pokes. But tiny pokes that are strong enough to, like, you know, deal with raiders or thugs. For the most part. And then... Yeah, this was actually a battle. So this was an intentional poke. He's seeing what Vanarus is keeping on top of his cap. So probably this turn or next or something, he'll magic phase on top of it. But we'll see. It's probably just mixing it up. And yeah, I think that's... I don't know if there's any other real news. Keeper of the Bridge, using Earnest to kill Greathawks. Feels a little weird, man. But keeping his forts open. So this turn he's got, what, 4 forts open? That's probably pretty good. He might actually be breaking even for the first time in a while. But definitely slowly fading with the rating pressure. Like, can you imagine that at one point he had all of this? You know, like he had really... And I hesitate to call it an overextension, because it's possible it could have been his. But really went out to stake a pretty large claim on a lot of land before he had really dealt the killing blow to Bandarlog, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that, because he was depriving the income from Bandarlog, etc. But the idea that he might control this is such a distant dream now. But he's doing a good job, and it takes a lot of mental fortitude when you're fighting this asymmetric of a war. You know, just the resources Ys has versus the resources he has. When you're fighting this, and you're getting no help, right? When you're fighting this asymmetric of a war, it takes a lot of real-life morale to keep in it. So major props to Vanarus for just fighting as hard as he can here. Because ultimately, his chances of winning the game are pretty much completely destroyed. And him fighting, like, the harder he fights, the better it is really for everybody else. And I think there's like a meta game element of you don't want people to think you're an easy target and will bend over and die. So there's a meta game element, you know, just game to game. you want to be a very as hard a target as possible, which I think he's definitely proving. Um, so anyway, mad props to him for that. Okay, so that's Veneroos. I think we've covered Ulm, Jotunheim, and I think that is it for this episode. So with that, we will see you next time. Thank you, guys.